Hey everybody and welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive into FlutterFlow. So for those of you who don't know, I'll go over pricing, some functionality, and most of what I think you're going to need to get started. Now, if you aren't aware of what FlutterFlow is, it's an incredibly powerful tool to build mobile applications basically without needing to know coding. So if we go to the pricing tab really quickly, you'll see we have a couple of different options. I'll focus on individual and teams because this is what most people are likely going to be using. So you'll see the prices here are going to drop by about 25% for annual, but we'll go to monthly billing first. So you'll see we have for free. You'll see what options you have. So you have this drag and drop builder instead of using coding. You have pre-built templates and a couple of other options, including API integration and web publishing. Now, if you upgrade to standard, then you get free features, which is everything here, plus a couple of other options like the code download, APK download, custom domain publishing, and then a couple of other options like testing on local devices. Now, Pro is where I think a lot of people are going to target, primarily because you'll see you have one-click Apple and Google Play Store deployment, along with a couple of other options. And then you'll see we have Teams for the same price. You'll see all of these additional options here. So that's pretty much everything as far as the pricing is concerned. Now you can go to their website and learn more. I have another video where I've done a little bit of an overview of the platform, which I'll link in the description, but that one's much older. So if you want to check that out, feel free. And again, don't forget, like and subscribe. Now, let's jump straight in. So if we were to click Create New, once we've logged into the platform, you would put the name of your app, and then you would basically just figure out what exactly it is that you're looking to build. So you'll see you have to have a project name. I believe it has to be a certain number of characters, and you have a couple of really nice templates. Now, you do have templates that you can purchase, and then you have templates that are just free. So you can go through and figure out what works best for you, and there's tons of other categories over here like AI and chat, e-commerce, etc. So you can go through, kind of figure out what works best for you, see if it's something you might need to purchase or not. But we'll start out with the use template for this stationary app. We'll call it sample app and click create. Now you'll see it'll take a moment or two, then you'll land in your dashboard. Now, one thing I will say, having used other codeless development platforms, I love how sleek this platform is, but one thing to note is it's much more complex and more difficult to get used to for first-time users if you've never used a codeless development platform before. So the easiest way, I'll try to basically chunk out the screen. So starting up here, this is basically your home screen. If you click on this, you go right back to where we were before, and then we can jump right back into our application. We can jump back and forth pretty quickly. Now up here, you'll see if you hover over, you have your sample app, your project ID, your branch, and your environment. You have the help menu here. If you select this, you can see the community, bug reports, tutorials. So there's a ton of other information here. You'll see if we select right next to it, we have these keyboard shortcuts, which are incredibly useful. And then when we continue over a little bit more, we have the search option here, which is also very helpful. And I like that they basically have pop-ups instead of navigating you to other pages. It's really annoying when a platform makes you move between pages because then you have to kind of pick up where you were and it can be a little bit difficult sometimes. Now, as we go through the top, you'll see we have the size up top, and we can click on these different device sizes and see what that size is, or you can click here and basically just manually set that size yourself. Now you have your versioning here, so you'll see we have versions, and you can save your project, and we could just put 1, 2, 3, 4. And when you save the version, you now have version 2. Then you can peek and restore from previous versions or look at your current one, and also view snapshots. So that's something that you can kind of manage there as you see fit. And you'll see again, we have, we save your work while you're building. Below are your project snapshots. So if we wanted to take a peek, and then it'll open everything up in this window here. It just may take a moment or two to load. And then you'll see basically we have that screen. So that's really everything as far as the versioning, which I think is incredibly helpful. Now you have your comments here, which if you want to work with a team, very, very useful. You have project suggestions. And then up here, you'll see we have issues and errors / warnings that you can review as you're building your project. Now you have a developer menu here. This is entirely up to you, but you do have options to open in Visual Studio Code, download code, connect GitHub, download APKs. As you can see, there's just quite a few different options if you're more technical. Now, as we continue to move over, you have this share option. So when you select this, you have the option to make a project public for others to view and become a creator for marketplace items. So a couple of cool options there as well. You can preview the app, and then you have some options here under Run, Test, Publish that you can work with as well. Now, I'm not going to focus too much on that because we're just using a sample app. So now we're going to go over here on the left-hand menu. So we have quite a few options that we're going to scroll through. So first is your build. So you have your widget palette. So if we were to select right here, you'll see all of these different elements that you can work with. So let's say we want just text. If you select text, or if you click it, you have a couple of different options. You can drag it over, and you'll see it shows up very, very small down here. And then when we double click, or click and hold, I should say, you can move it around. So if we wanted to have this text here, then you can manage it when you click it. You can see all of these options for what the text is, the opacity, how responsive it is, padding, all of these different options here. So this is what I mean by it could be a bit complex, because a lot of other builders, you may just select it, drag it to make it larger, and that's it. Whereas with FlutterFlow, you have a ton of options that would take several videos, to be honest, to go through. Now, we have this text. We have actions on basically what you want it to do. So we can click Add Action. You can choose the action, and as you can see, there's tons, and you can choose what it does when you've selected it. So if we were to, for example, click on tap, then we want it to navigate to, let's just say, the help page. So then basically when you click this button, or this text, I guess I should say, the expectation would be that it's going to navigate you to another page. So if you want, you have the option, you can always go and you can, for example, preview the app. And then you can test the functionality depending on the different pages that you've worked on. So for example, if we click Hello World, it now opens up this help and support page. So that so far is working as expected. Now you can continue doing this basically same exact thing with all of these different elements. For example, if you want an ad banner, then you can click and drag. You'll see that we can manage this banner. You can resize if you're interested, and then you can go through and adjust the settings over here, so unit ID and things of that nature, and then you can go through testing settings and really just manage everything that you need. So essentially when you select a component or an element or a widget, over here you have the ability to manage it. Do you want to add a query? Do you want to add animations on page load? Do you want to add any documentation? So all of these settings are going to appear over here in this right-hand pane. So this is this first build menu. This is where you're basically grabbing all of these widgets from, and as you can see, there are a lot of them. Now, next up we have our page selector. So you're going to spend a lot of time in these two sections. So firstly, you'll see we have our splash page, and then you can always select these individual folders to expand them. We have our onboarding page. You'll see that we have our forgot password page. The idea here is you can essentially click a page and drag it around wherever you want it. Maybe you want to move this page here. You could drag this page over here. And then when you select a page, it opens it up here, and you can view all of those elements. Then go back to your widget palette and manage things from here. So the idea again is you can see all of these different options, and you also have the ability to click right here and see all of these options for moving it. And again, you can kind of work with whatever works or whatever you need. And as you've noticed, when you click on Just for You, for example, we have all of the settings for this page over here. So you can make, edit, change, update, delete if you're interested, and view all of these different options. Again, adding queries, animations, site management, etc. Now, next up, we'll see we have this widget tree. So you would pick a page with a widget and you can see really just more detail about that widget. So think of this side as your settings and this side as almost like this page selector, but for your widgets. So again, when we click on column, for example, so we're on our page, you'll see we have a row, and then we have a container, we have an icon, we have text. So basically it's just showing how this is built. Now it might be easier to choose a different page. So for example, if we go to privacy policy, when we click on this, you'll see all we really have is a list view with a bunch of different text. Now, we also have our storyboard. Now, this is where it can get pretty complex. So you can click to zoom in and out and double click, for example, to kind of drag things around and see what this sample storyboard essentially looks like. You can look through, basically this is your user journey. You can think of it that way. You can see all of the different options and kind of how this works. And then you can click here to learn more about how you want it to work. So you can click and hold to drag components, things of that nature. So the idea is if I wanted to move this, I could. It really just depends on what you feel is needed and kind of how you plan to use that. But I don't think that's something most people will start out with immediately. Now, you do have the ability to connect Firestore. You have the ability to manage different data types within this screen here. You have app values, which you'll get some by default if you're using certain templates. So I wouldn't recommend editing these unless you know what they are and how they function. And you'll see that you have some constants here as well that you can manage. We have API calls. We have media assets, and this is basically what's already in the application, but you can add more if you're interested. And then you also have the option to select them or view them in a new tab. Now, this is the custom code area. If you are not familiar with coding, I do not recommend trying to make changes to this because this obviously can get very, very complex, but it is cool that they allow you to manage and make edits here. Now you have cloud functions that you can manage as well. I'm not planning on walking through this too much, but you can create and manage these based on your specific needs. You also have automated tests. If this is something that you're interested in, it's a pretty interesting option and it's only available in certain plans, so we're going to skip this for now. You'll see we have agents where you can add in basically these AI agents to deliver responses to users. We have our colors, so you can go through, see what colors are associated with what. You can manage typography, icons, design system, and the theme widgets here. And then lastly, we have our settings. So this is all of your app details, everything that you're going to need. For example, your Firebase settings, app assets. As you can see, there's quite a bit, especially if you're doing things like Stripe for payments or any of these other options here like AdMob, for example, for ads in your application. Now, again, that's the high-level basics. So again, the general idea is you can start out, it's probably easier to start with a blank canvas, build from there, and then go into an application that has a template. That way you have an understanding of how pages get linked. It's very easy to start with a template, but then if you were to do that, for example, if we want to test this really, really quickly, you have a couple of choices to make it public, but if you're working with someone else's template, it's following the logic that they have set up. So if you don't completely understand that, for example, clicking back from privacy policy may have a certain action that you don't want. So you would have to figure out, okay, how do I manage this? What should I do for this application? So that's why, again, it's usually better to start, just make sure that you understand it, how to use it, and then kind of go from there. So that was my high-level overview. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment box below, and I'll see you all in the next video.